You're listening to the Music Business Breakthrough Podcast with me, your host, Grammy-nominated artist and certified trauma-informed success coach, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. In this episode, I'm going to share my personal revenue generation strategy and sources. Now, I just want to give you a few disclaimers. There are definitely opportunities that I'm missing out on that you may have access to based on the genre of your music and what you do. For example, I don't make money from DJing gigs, but that might be something that you do. Also, some of the stuff that I do is also genre specific. For example, I do have a revenue stream from my music being on meditation apps. So if you're a death metal artist, that may not be an option based on the kind of music that you're coming out with. So full disclaimer, this is completely personal from my point of view, but I just wanted to share what's possible. This is like the FedEx arrow. If you don't know this analogy, it's a great example of once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once something is in your realm, in your world, then you're that much closer to having it. So the FedEx arrow is this. There is negative space in the FedEx logo that is a white arrow facing the direction that the logo is going. It's a very powerful image because it's so subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every time I see a FedEx truck now, I can't not see the arrow once I heard that there is an arrow inside of the FedEx logo. So when I share some of these things, these sources of income, a lot of them you will have heard before, but to know someone that has that takes it from just being nebulous information into, oh, now I'm connected to this in some way. And you get to decide when you hear it, oh, does this light me up? Is there something here? Is this a potential future champagne win for one of my cycles in the musician success cycle? If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back and listen. So let me dig into my sources of revenue and we'll see what lights you up. And I'm going to be really honest here. I will share that everything I'm going to tell you are sources of money that I've made that have been significant, meaning most likely more than $1,000, usually more than $10,000. So I'm just going to put that out there. If I've made a couple cents, I'm not sharing that. In no particular order, I'll just start sharing my different sources of income. The first one is licensing, getting songs of mine that I've already produced and already released into TV shows, film, and commercials. The biggest source of money for me happens to be commercials, but that was also where I got one of my starts. I was an assistant tech at a jingle house, so I had some connections from that job, and I was also an assistant editor at a commercial editing house. So I was in the commercial world at the start of my music career and my independent music career. So I had some connections there, and I was able to get my music in front of editors and people that would be putting the music onto the commercials. My biggest check was $15,000 from a commercial where they put the music on and they actually didn't contact me to let me know that it had aired. And I was watching the series finale of The Office and I saw this commercial with my song. There was no dialogue. It was just my song. I reached out and I said, hey, I think you guys owe me some money for this. And we had to go back and forth a little bit. And finally I asked for a much bigger number than they probably would have given me if I had done the deal from the beginning. But I think they were a little scared about copyright issues. So that was a great check to get from really early on in my career. And it was also a really good lesson that it is okay to advocate for yourself and to ask for more just because some other people would have killed just to have that accolade on their resume. I was really committed to getting paid for my work. The second source of income that's been pretty big for me is selling my music. That means physical sales at shows as well as digital sales. I always am going after some sort of sales goal or chart goal. For a long time in New Age, it was all about the sales of CDs, digital and physical. Only very recently did the Billboard chart change their parameters and the requirements to include streaming, something I was not involved with at all until very, very recently. So streaming is now a nice significant source of income for me as well. I've been able to get on a great number of really big playlists, including Spotify editorial playlists, so that I have well over 3 million streams on my New Age music alone in the past 2 years. So that does turn into several $100s a month, which is not nothing, but it's also obviously not what we should be getting paid. That's a whole other podcast episode. So streaming absolutely is a source of income for me. The sales of music always is as well. I encourage my fans during my release week to purchase my albums on iTunes, Bandcamp, and Amazon. Those are the 3 platforms that I've sort of trained my fans to get familiar with, to purchase. Those are 3 platforms that report back to the Billboard charts, and they also have their own charts for each of those sites. So it's really fun to sort of see how well you're doing. It's a great way to get your fans engaged and to sort of see the ticker and go from being top 10 to top 5 to number 1 on these charts. So I love that as a fan engagement tool, and it also has a financial result for me, which is, we love that. Live performances have always been a huge source of income for me, whether it was ticket fees or venue payouts. For example, I got a $10,000 check for playing a 45-minute set at a hotel opening with my full band, and we got to stay in the hotel. That was a beautiful gig. I love gigs like that. I love gigs where the fans are so engaged, and it was such a memorable show that they are really easy to sell merch to, and CDs and things that I can sign for them are always really good ticket prices. So I always made money on merch. I always made money on CD sales. And I tried to either get a deal where I would get a percentage of the ticket, or the venue was giving me a guarantee fee. A whole other side of my income generation has been from creating music for specific briefs, custom music for people. That can include podcasts, that has definitely included commercials, that included web series. For years, I was one of the composers for collegehumor.com doing parodies, and sometimes I was mashing up different songs. I did a great mashup of Downton Abbey theme with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme. Super fun. So some of it was original music, some of it was stuff like that where I was reproducing other tracks or re-singing on things. So my production and composing skills have been a great source of income for me. One of the biggest ones is working in the commercial world, which I still do. I'm a freelance commercial composer, which means jingle houses, the houses that are creating the music for commercials, get called by advertising agencies. A client like Coca-Cola or Pepsi will call the agency, and the agency will say, okay, we'll make this commercial for you. They're in charge of finding everyone from the production company to the actors to the music. They usually will hire a company, a music house, and those music houses have in-house composers sometimes, and or rosters of freelance composers like myself. They will ask us to demo on it, meaning they'll pay us a small fee. Ideally, that fee is more than $500. Some jingle houses many of them are still stuck in like 2003 paying like $250 or $300, which I don't accept anymore. And you submit your 30-second demo along with several other people submitting the demos, and then they give a body of work to the client, and the client decides which one they like. If they end up choosing mine, then that's a whole other fee structure, and it depends on if it's a union job, if there's vocals on it. There's so many different parameters onto what that payment looks like. It can be anything from $5,000 to $50,000. So that's always really fun, and there's usually royalties involved with that if it's a non-buyout, meaning if they didn't pay all the money up front for no back end. If it's not a buyout, that means that I will see royalties continuously as long as the commercial is airing. So speaking of singing, there are session fees that I have gotten, and sometimes those session fees are union. And because I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, I will see union fees, which is another source of income. I got into the union a really, really long time ago when a kid didn't show up. This is back when I was like an assistant tech at a jingle house. A kid didn't show up for this like kid choir commercial for a cell phone company that no longer exists. And the kid's line was, "We need a cell phone." And that's all they had to sing. And the kid didn't show up. So they're like, "Cheryl, can you just go in there and like sing that line like a little kid until the kid comes?" The kid never came. They never changed the line out. And I ended up making $4,000 just for 30 seconds of my time, less than 30 seconds. So I was able to pay for the SAG dues, and then once I got in, I stayed in. So now I'll do SAG gigs, and I will be able to sing on things and perform on commercials. I'll do voiceovers. I have read for audible.com. I've narrated books before, and I've set up my studio so that I can record from anywhere and be a vocal source for any company or entity that requires my voice. That leads me to the next one, which is I will sing and play piano on other people's tracks, and I will also remix other people's tracks. I've gotten paid to take jazz tracks and turn them into ambient tracks. Once I got nominated for the Grammy, people knew that I produced my own music and was able to mix and produce and compose in this ambient electronic kind of field. And so people have come to me with their vocals or their stems, breakdowns of their pre-recorded tracks, and asked me to remix them in a different kind of genre. And that's always really fun. It's a way to put my what I do onto what someone else does. And it's a cool kind of collaboration that happens at different times. So I love doing that, and I will get a producer's fee for that. One of the things that I was really committed to early on in my career was having some sort of consistent income, knowing that the music industry, and in fact, all of the entertainment industry, is really, really unpredictable. Even my boss at the Jingle House, this huge multi-million-dollar beautiful business, told me that they never knew where their money was coming from in 6 months. The entertainment industry, no matter where you are in it, is volatile and unpredictable. So whatever you can do to create a nice foundation of income so that the ups and downs don't go all the way down to zero. Maybe the downs are $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. But I wanted to keep raising that lowest common denominator. And one of the ways I did that was with odd jobs early on, like personal training, bouncing, bartending, all of those sorts of jobs. I have done them all, but I wanted to start to get something that was consistent and personal, where I could say to a client, hey, I'm going to go on tour for 3 weeks. We'll meet back up then, and here's your homework in between. So personal training was awesome for me because I was able to do just that. Also, teaching piano and vocal lessons was something that I really started to love and did for about 10 years while I was building my own independent music career. And absolutely, teaching music will make you a better musician and is part of your music career. Do not poo-poo on teaching. If you love teaching, if you have that in you, if you are skilled and you have done your own sources of lessons and you know how to structure a lesson and packages. I got really, really good at being smart about selling packages up front so that if someone missed, I could just deduct a lesson, and I was never losing money because of unpredictable students. So you can be really, really smart about teaching music or production or anything music to other people and have that be part of your music income, and definitely raise the bar for what you can expect monthly. Overall, diversifying my income was always really, really important to me. When the pandemic hit, it was no problem for me. And what we did inside of Amplify was get everyone that was touring and freaking out to turn their tour income into online streaming income. And most people in my membership and mastermind Amplify thrived during the pandemic when everyone else took 6 months to even figure out that it was happening. By the time November 2020 came along, Amplify members were making more money than they were before the pandemic. So I was ready to pivot because I had multiple sources of income. I had royalties coming in from placements. I had all sorts of different aspects to my music career, so that the live performance, even though that was terminated because of pandemic for a little while, I had all of these other things to look at, and I was able to guide other musicians to not just surviving, but thriving when they needed to make a pivot. We were able to diversify their income so they had multiple sources of income to rely on. And I feel so much more safe around finances because that's something that I've worked on for a really long time. Diversity in your income sources is key, but also allowing yourself to focus and set up the systems for each one of those streams of income is also paramount. And we'll talk more about systems in another episode. For now, I would go back and listen to the musician's success cycle. That will really, really get you clear on how to focus on a particular goal right now. And maybe that goal is financial, maybe it's not. But either way, knowing that you can focus and set yourself up for the future is so empowering. I'll see you in the next episode.